The more I'm on this earth, the more I realize how everybody just they don't know how to talk to each other. I think the whole occupation of therapy isn't a scam, but it's more of a underlying issue that we don't know how to navigate communicating with each other. I remember years ago I was having a conversation with my sister. She was talking to me about this one show that she was into called The Good Place. And I was writing my book, Purgatory Academy. She made the connection of both of the ideas, was talking about the afterlife and morality. And me being a very young and very brash person, I kind of had a feeling that she wanted to say, you should look at the show because you would probably gather something from it. And what I knew about the show prior, it was a typical, it just felt like atheists using the backdrop of Christianity, saying that all you really need to be is just vaguely nice, is that all the evils in the world comes from people that are just not heckin' boyos. You know what I'm saying? And I just kind of dismissed her interest in that show. And I remember on that I think we were on a car ride home. I remember when I dismissed that hurt her. I remember that hurt her, and I knew something was pretty off with me, right? I know for a lot of people that might have been like a weird reaction, a weird thing to say that it was to cry over, but I don't know. I just don't like seeing people hurt by what I say, right? So I went on. I picked up an audiobook called The Art of Communication by a Buddhist monk with a name that I cannot pronounce. I should have pronounced it. I should have looked it up before I did this video, but I don't really know. But I remember the title of the book was called The Art of Communication. And the one thing that I got out of it was that not art, but like communicating, talking to people can be used to help and it can be used to hurt. And people don't know when to use those words or when to communicate efficiently or when to not communicate at all. Right? And I say that because I remember another story that happened, another thing that happened in my life like years later when I was talking to a therapist. And it wasn't my therapist. I was in a cruise. It was a very funny story. I was in a cruise. A therapist was also in a cruise. I said hi. We were both in the same location. I just wanted to chop it up, and we just ended up like talking to each other throughout the entire cruise ship. But I remember when I was talking to him that he was a child therapist, and the one thing that he told me is the main reason why children end up in therapy is because the parents, they don't know how to handle kids. So you have kids wanting to end it all, and you have parents so confused with why their kids are having a bad time in life, so they just shove them into like a therapist so they wouldn't be their problem anymore. It's like they have a kid and they have an idea of how the world is supposed to work, and they just shove it off to somebody else saying, my kid's broken, fix it. You know what I mean? And I'm pretty sure a lot of people have that kind of problem. And it goes into communicating with adults as well. I remember I was watching, and that also leads me to another thing. This is how my mind works. Sorry if I'm just jumping into one or another thing, but this is the last thing I'm going to jump on. And hopefully I'll be able to like wrap out all of these things together, right? I do remember another thing that shoot. Yeah, sorry about that. But anyway, I said shoot because I was afraid that I was gonna forget it. But I do remember. But the weird thing about communicating with other adults is that everybody don't want to have time for each other, right? I remember reading this one book about the 40, 42, 48 laws of power. It was 40 something laws of power by Robert Greene. And depending on where you are, in your where you are in life, and if you have any baggage with the author or not, it's neither here or there. But I do remember the only rule of power that stuck out to me, probably I'll take to the grave, is to be interesting, is to be interested. And that was the only rule of power that I remember, because it was the rule of power that just constantly was vindicated. It was so self-evident. Every time I would find myself in a conversation with somebody talking about something that I had no interest in, and it was so easy to make a bond just by asking open-ended questions, being an active listener, right? And when I would just be an active listener, people are so easy. People are so easy to give you private information about their lives. They are so easy. They are so willing to dump all of their trauma onto you, because nobody will ask them what's going on. Or everybody, well, I guess that's not the issue, because everybody would ask what's going on. I remember everybody asks you what's going on, but as soon as you say something other than "I'm not okay," that breaks the NPC dialogue. Have anybody felt that? Anytime when you would go into work or into school or talk to your parents and they say, "How are you?" and you're like, "I'm not doing good," they're like, they just feel bothered, because they just want the NPC dialogue to go as planned, because they just want their life, they just want their day to be in an open loop. Well, when something goes off, it just messes up everybody's spirit. I think that's a weird thing that I noticed about day-to-day life, is that nobody cares, because everybody has their own baggage in life, and nobody is willing to take the time, or nobody knows how to react when someone says my day isn't good. I know I'm gonna gotta look at my time. Yeah, I think it's about time to wrap it up. But I think a lot of it also comes from when I was growing up. My internal baggage. Sometimes some of it comes from when I would give my honest opinions on just life in general. It doesn't have to be anything specific, but I do remember a common retort that is through all of my superiors, is when I say when I give my honest opinion about something, I get a retort that says, "You shouldn't feel that way," right? It's like saying, I don't like being with X, Y, and Z. I get a retort of saying, well, you shouldn't feel that way. I don't know if I'm alone in this. And I think growing up with that response formed a mental block in my cognitive thinking of, if I want to be honest with somebody, they're not going to accept it. They want to force their idea onto it. They want to enforce they want to enforce how I should feel about it, the expectations onto my reality. And there goes that roadblock. But I guess that's the flaw I learned from my elders, and I guess it's just up to me to break it. People like us, I guess. So, yeah, that's all I got to say.